Hey guys, if you like this content, I would greatly appreciate it if you guys liked the video and subscribed to my channel. It helps make these videos worth it going forward. Hey guys, Altcoin Sherpa here with a crypto market review. As always, this is not financial advice. I'm not like. I personally am unsure given the overall macro conditions in Bitcoin's existence are far different than what we're seeing today. You know, we are arguably entering into a long-term macro recession, and Bitcoin has mainly only been in an up-only environment. So it's going to be really interesting to see how everything plays out. Don't really know, to be frank and honest with you. TA isn't really super helpful, especially from a macro environment sense, but we'll try to make as much sense of it as we can from the charts. So obviously there's three different ways that Bitcoin usually trends. Either one, it's like a big downtrend where it's just lower highs and lower lows. The second one is a consolidation period where it just chops around, equal highs and equal lows. And then a bullish market structure where we have higher highs and higher lows. So these are the three different types of market structure that Bitcoin is in typically. And the bottom is usually characterized by the second one, this consolidation period, this accumulation period. And that usually, as I said, is in it's recognized by equal highs and equal lows and a lower amount of volatility. So let's go all the way back. This is the Bitfinex chart to 2015, where price chopped around for almost like an entire year, I think. So if you mark the chart where you have kind of these highs right around $320 and then these lows at $160, price chopped around for quite some time. Like, it depends on where you want to denote it, but it's almost an entire year while it just chops around. And this is still a large range, don't get me wrong. You can still make a lot of money trading these ranges, but if you bought Bitcoin back in February of 2015 at $200 and then waited again in late September, it'd still be about $250. So there's not a huge amount of movement within that time span, relatively speaking. Now, obviously, scalpers, day traders, swing traders will still be profitable if they're profitable traders in general during these moves from, say, 200 to 320. Obviously, that's like a pretty significant move. But for longer-term investors and people who are more passive, these moves aren't going to be very significant during these time periods. So, as I said before, with Bitcoin's market structure, usually it's bearish, consolidating, or bullish. When it is in a consolidation period, this is usually the period where there is a trend change. So, and a trend change mainly from bearish to bullish. This is the type of price action that you want to see at a bottom, where you see a price just chopping around, and you want to see a lot of high volatility at the start of this big move down. For instance, this is characterized by very big sell volume in early January of 2015, and obviously the volume indicator is not as significant these days, given how many exchanges there are, but it's still relevant for this Bitfinex chart, in my opinion, back in the context of where it was in 2015. So, what does a Bitcoin bottom look like? From what I've seen on lower time frames and studying the charts, it's usually characterized like one final big push down, huge amount of volatility, and then you enter this kind of choppy cooling period where price just kind of chills out and low volatility, low volume, and then it just chops around for a long time. So this is the kind of blueprint that you see for a lot of charts when mapping out the Bitcoin bottom. And I'm using the Bitcoin bottom as examples of 2018 is kind of the last big one, in my opinion. before this current one, obviously. So we saw price set a floor at 6K. Obviously, price continued to bounce up and down on that level. And then we had one final capitulation move down from 6K to 3K, and that was really devastating, obviously. And if you scroll down to lower time frame charts, you can kind of see like really, really high sell volume, really big volatility, kind of like these wicks. And then you saw this calming period after where price was just much lower volatility relative to the start of it, and much lower volume as well. You can see the volume just kind of dying down. And, this is kind of what you want to see as a Bitcoin bottom. Now, this is more common in my opinion from what I've seen on the charts as well for a Bitcoin bottom. Now, there are people that are saying, okay, so like what about 2020? What about this V-shaped reversal that we saw in 2020? I think it's unlikely that Bitcoin hits a V-shaped reversal for several reasons. Number one, this was an extreme black swan event with COVID where like the entire world, this is like a mass world event where like everybody getting laid off, everybody like not just being stuck inside, quarantining, like COVID was raging, supply chains are all fucked up, and they still are fucked up. And this was just kind of like an extreme event in my opinion. So I don't think that we're going to have a V-shaped reversal because V-shaped reversals in Bitcoin are very uncommon. Like I haven't really seen them in the charts really at all. And specifically, I'm talking about V-shaped reversals on high time frame charts where it just completely like recovers. Like, so this had a few factors going for it. Number one, so much liquidity was collected from 10K. Sorry, there's a airplane flying by. So much liquidity was collecting from 10K to 3K or 4K or whatever this was. And like so many people got liquidated on this move down because nobody expected it, that so much liquidity was collected, as well as the Fed printing tons and tons of money all throughout this big move up. It created this massive massive V-shaped reversal that is very uncommon in regards to crypto. I don't think we're going to see something like this again because we're not going to see the Fed pump trillions of dollars into the system. And that's just like it created a perfect storm for Bitcoin going up. And Bitcoin wasn't isolated either. Obviously, like equities all went up too. People were inside day trading, and retail actually got wrecked. But that's like same story as it always goes. So this was a V-shaped reversal back in 2020. I don't think this is what's going to happen going forward. Just because this severe drop was so extreme, and then obviously the resulting macro landscape behind after just created this big reversal. And so here's another example back in May of 2021. This was another kind of big downtrend where we had the move from 60K all the way down to 30. And this was obviously extreme as well. And if you scroll down to lower time frames too, you can kind of see a little bit what I'm talking about in regards to this extreme move down, big wick. You want to see this big wick down. This is like kind of a capitulation wick followed by insane amount of volatility here. You can see crazy wicks in both directions. You see like high sell volume, you see like kind of people getting wrecked on both sides. And then after that, you kind of hit this like consolidation period where price just kind of, has equal highs. And then it has equal lows, And then you see price kind of doing like these slow grinds in both directions. So this one, it grinded back lower. Everybody was like, oh, fuck, like it's over. It's going to 20K. And then boom, And this was still a different macro landscape than we are today, obviously. So, I don't think you can necessarily compare the two. But this still shows an example that Bitcoin does need time to chop around. Like this still was a several month period, like before it really started to move, it was at least 2 months and even more depending on where you want to denote kind of the breakout of this range. Because, this is really just like a several month period. So this is very common in regards to what Bitcoin does in terms of overall recovery periods. Now, I'm going to say this, like, where are we at right now contextually? This looks terrible, obviously. Looks really bad, with the macro landscape as it is. I don't know where the bottom is going to be. I'm still waiting for some sort of long-term capitulation wick. I mean, this arguably could be it, but it doesn't feel like it, to be honest with you. I would really like to see like some sort of deep wick. That would be like pretty good on like the daily, something like we saw back in May. But I'm also open to the idea that we're not going to see a deep wick just because I think that a lot of the leverage is out of the system. Like I don't think retail is as leveraged as they were before back in like May of 2021. And I think that most of the selling that we're seeing right now is spot just because people are being forced to sell. You're seeing these big trading desks, these big lending platforms. These people are getting liquidated. So that's going to look a little bit different than these types of charts back in May and June and July. So what I'm really looking for at this point is some sort of wick down. I don't know where the bottom is going to be. It could be here for all we know. It could be like 17K, 16K. It could be 10K for all we know. Like, I don't know where it's going to be, but I'm looking for this kind of wick down where we see like one final shakeout, and then kind of the other characteristics that I said before when forming a bottom. So we're seeing like a big final shakeout, huge amount of volatility, wicking back and forth, and then a nice calming period. And I'm expecting this to be kind of a long period, to be frank and honest with you. Similar to like what we saw back in like 2018, I think that we're going to need to see some sort of long accumulation period. So this is like what we saw back in 2018 to early 2019, where price just chopped around and really didn't have any significant moves. Price also did spend a lot of 2020 accumulating, in my opinion. Like this is why we saw such a big move. You saw these long periods where price is just chopped around. And this is also, this is 2019. This is also a reason why altcoins did so well in 2020 is just because A, Bitcoin dominance was so high already, and then B, it really was an environment where altcoins thrived because Bitcoin was really not really doing anything. It was just chopping around. So yeah, this is kind of like my overall, this is kind of what I'm watching. I'm watching for one last capitulation wick, and then I'm waiting for this like kind of long consolidation period where price just chops around. Doesn't really do a whole lot, relatively speaking. We're going to see some like slow bleed and then slow grinds up and then like not much volume. I think this is what we're going to see, something like this. So I think that much of 2022 is really just going to be spent chopping around, to be frank and honest with you. After this, like I think the bulk of the downtrend is obviously it's got to be close to being like somewhat close. Like I think we're closer to the bottom than the top, obviously, because we're already 70% down from the peak. And I know that Bitcoin historically goes, I think like 85% down, I think, in its downtrends. So, in that regard, we still do have some more blood to go, more bleeding to go through. But I'm hopeful that, it's closer to the bottom than the top. So yeah, obviously back in the last big bull run, 2017, that was like, negative 80% down. This is a 70% down from the peak of 2019 all the way down to COVID, and that was a 70% move. So, it's not necessarily one size fits all, and obviously macro conditions are going to affect things a lot. But I think that, I'm still just kind of waiting for some key levels, such as levels such as 20K, all the way down to like kind of like the 16K area. And then like if things get really, really bad with the macro landscape, I don't know what else there could be. I'm sure there are things, but I'd say the majority of my buys are all throughout this kind of like 16K to 20K area. Those are kind of like the areas where I'm going to be buying myself. And play by ear, not necessarily going to go like, all in, but and I'm also going to de-risk on the way up too. I'm not going to like just buy this and just like hold it for the next 10 years. I do plan on de-risking. So, if it goes from anywhere from like 20K all the way up to like, 27K or something like that, then I'm probably going to sell some percentage of it. Anyways, hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. I'm really excited to get back to doing these, and thank you so much for the support.